glad that Senator Rand Paul has a plan that would cut even more. It would balance the budget in 5 years. Senator Paul, what do you cut that other plans are too timid to cut?
Yeah, well, I think what we're finding is that Washington really hasn't woken up to what the Tea Party and the country wants. The president's plan will add about $11 trillion to the debt over 10 years. Congressman Ryan, I think, is trying to do the right thing, but his plan will add $8 trillion to the debt over 10 years. We need to do something much more dramatic, or I think we're in for a world of hurt as this debt crisis comes forward.
Congressman Ryan doesn't eliminate whole departments, but you do. You'd get rid of the education department.
I think it's the only way you can actually come up with significant enough cuts. And there's a couple of reasons. One, there's no constitutional authority for the federal government to be involved in education. But number two, there's no evidence that the federal government being involved in spending $100 billion a year has done anything to change test scores.
You want to get rid of the Department of Energy.
The Department of Energy, almost all of it could be gotten rid of. It interferes with and takes away our choices on what kind of showers we want, what kind of toilets we want, what kind of light bulbs we want. So most of the Department of Energy is superfluous, and it really is an impediment to producing energy. Not one barrel of oil is produced by the Department of Energy, but the Department of Energy stops a lot of oil from being produced.
You'd eliminate the Department of Housing and Urban Development. People assume poor people would go without homes.
Well, I think the Housing and Urban Development's probably torn down more houses than they've actually built. And really, I don't think it's been good for or eliminated any poverty through the years.
You'd get rid of the Department of Commerce. You quote a former Commerce Secretary who said the department is nothing more than a hall closet where you throw in everything that you don't know what to do with.
Exactly. And the other thing is I think it galls the American taxpayer that the CEOs of large multinational corporations, average salary $7.5 million a year, are being flown around at our expense on government jets doing business deals. I'm all for trade, I'm all for business deals, but companies should pay for this. There's a lot of profit in these corporations, and they should pay for their travel, not the taxpayer.
Maybe we should rename the Department of Commerce the Department of Corporate Welfare, because they give all that money to big companies.
Absolutely. There's a lot of welfare. People think of welfare as only going to poor people, but a lot of it goes to rich people. I've watched your take on the flood insurance that goes to a lot of rich homeowners who have beach houses. So you'll find that a lot of government welfare is actually going to subsidize those who are actually quite wealthy.
Yeah, I feel bad about taking that money, but I took it. A smaller one, eliminate the government printing office is in your plan. But without that, what about the Squeaks comic book? I was stunned by this one. The government prints these comic books. It's supposed to excite kids about printing. They cost more than $10. The government tries to sell them. I don't know if they sell any for $5, so they'd lose $5 a comic. Why does government do these things?
Can you imagine a government sells something for half of what it costs to produce it? Sounds like government's not very good at business. I always tell people over and over again, it's not that government is inherently stupid, although that's a debatable point. It's that they don't get the same signals. Businessmen and women have to make a profit. Government doesn't have to, so it's inherent that everything they do will be inefficient.
Now, one thing that puzzled me in these big plans that are being attacked by Democrats, both the Republican Study Committee and Congressman Ryan's plan don't cut defense beyond what President Obama says he's cutting.
I tell people that there's an inconvenient truth, and the inconvenient truth for conservatives is that you cannot balance the budget if you eliminate all the non-military spending. So you will have to say, yes, I do believe in a strong national defense, and I do. I think it's the #1 constitutional function of government. But it doesn't mean that all military spending is sacred or that all military spending is well spent. If you're a serious conservative and if you seriously want to balance the budget, you will have to look at cutting some of the military spending.
Your budget quotes Dwight D. Eisenhower, who said, "We will bankrupt ourselves in a vain search of absolute security."
Yeah, it's absolutely right. And the thing is that, here's a guy who truly did serve his country, believed in our country, believed in a strong national defense, but he warned us very carefully about the military-industrial complex.
But I assume your Republican colleagues who want to cut spending, they're not just trying to get money for their district. Why is this not on the table?
Here's the thing when you look at it. When recently we had an FAA bill, there's $400 million, not that much in a $3.7 trillion budget, but $400 million for essential air services, basically to subsidize small airports and travel, usually to airports where congressmen live near the airport. We couldn't even get all the Republicans to vote against that. And my point on the floor was, if you can't cut $400 million, how are we ever going to balance a deficit of $1.6 trillion?
You would cut billions more from the Agriculture Department, get rid of the Agriculture Research Service, the Foreign Agriculture Service, the National Institute of Food and Agriculture. People hear that and they think, we'll go hungry.
Well, I think most of the problem in our country, really, we have an overeating problem as opposed to an undereating problem in America. And what I would say, you can help those. There are people in our country who have absolutely no money. The more local, the better, and we can help people, but we shouldn't be. You know that a lot of these food programs are underutilized, so we pay people, we pay government agents to go out and advertise, please come and eat the free food, because not enough people are coming in to eat the free food.
Your budget quotes Thomas Jefferson. I wish it were possible to obtain a single amendment to the Constitution. I mean, an article taking from the federal government the power of borrowing. I mean, we'd be in deep trouble if we weren't able to borrow.
Well, you know, Jefferson had it right when he said government's best that governs least, because government is ineffective, inefficient, and really doesn't spend money wisely. So we should give very little money to government, as little as we possibly can, and leave most of it in the private sector. So Jefferson had it right.
In our next segment, a progressive will say it's the borrowing, the government investment that's given us the internet and all kinds of wonderful medical research.
Well, you know, if you look at the $1 trillion that President Obama spent in a stimulus package, you divide it out by job created, it was over $400,000 per job created. So if you're creating $20,000 a year jobs, but it costs you $400,000 to create that job, my guess is that's not very good or efficient use of capital. So I say send it back to the people.
Well, thank you, Senator Paul.
Thank you.
His plan and